So as I go through the demonstration, you should be paying close attention to quantities, materials that I'm using, as well as the steps of the procedure. Write them down in your notebook. Write them down on a separate piece of paper if you want to, so that you have those tips. You have an idea of the steps that you're going to need to record for your procedures and go through when you conduct the lab. Okay, first thing I'm going to do, got all my materials. I've gathered all my materials. I'm going to demonstrate with 2 substances. You're going to have how many in your group? Show me on your fingers. You're going to have 8 total. You're going to be testing 4 at a time. You're going to test 4 at a time. I'm going to test 2, but you're going to be testing 4 at a time. So I'm going to take my first 2 test tubes. I'm going to label them with my substances. One of my substances is water, pure water. That's our control. The other substance is the mystery substance. So I'm going to label it with a question mark for a mystery substance. I'm using my Sharpie, my permanent marker, to label it. That was a hint. Using my permanent marker to label my test tubes. I'm then going to take my graduated cylinder, and I'm going to measure 10 milliliters of water. I'm just cleaning this out a little bit. But I'm going to measure 10 milliliters of substance 1 using my graduated cylinder. I got a little too much, so I'm going to pour some out. Try it again. I will have the solutions made for you already, and each solution will have its own 10 milliliter graduated cylinder, so this will be a little easier for you when it comes time to start the lab. So I'm going to add 10 milliliters of water to the test tube labeled water, not the test tube labeled mystery substance.
Wait, so would it be using water, or would it be? Oh yeah.
You're gonna substitute the four substances that you're gonna test in place of my water and mystery substance.
Oh.
So I'm gonna do 10 milliliters of mystery substance. That's close enough. 10 milliliters of mystery substance to the mystery substance test tube. I'm then going to make sure that it's nice and level. I'm going to mark the starting position of the substance. I'm going to mark the starting position of the substance on the second test tube using my Sharpie. So the initial position. Next, I'm going to take a 250 milliliter beaker. I am going to get some warm water in my beaker. And I will probably help you with this step depending, because this hot pot over here is full of hot water. So I may help you with this, but you're going to get 100 milliliters of hot water. You're not going to use more than 100 milliliters because you're adding test tubes to this. Displacement will cause the water to spill out. I'm going to test the temperature of my water. I'm going to make sure it's between 50 and 60 degrees Celsius. So you need to make sure it is relatively warm to start with because it will cool off over time. So right about there, it's about 50 degrees Celsius, which is about perfect, 55 degrees. Okay, so I've got my warm water ready in my 250 milliliter beaker. I've got my 2 test tubes with the substance marked for the starting position. I'm going to take my yeast, and I'm going to put 2 half-gram scoops into each container for a total of 1 gram. So I'm adding 1 gram of yeast to each container. Then I'm going to use my wooden stir stick to mix the yeast up. I'm going to use a separate stirring stick for separate substances. I'm going to place my substances in the water. I'm going to start stopwatch, and I'm going to time for at least 3 minutes. The time may change depending on our yeast and how active it is. We may need to leave it longer for it to activate. Okay? I know you might be feeling kind of whelmed right now with the number of steps. Okay? But we're going to go through it. I'll help you. You've seen it. You'll have a chance to think through and write these procedures. Okay? I'm not going to have you stare at me for 3 minutes because that would be kind of awkward. But are there any questions? Sean?
How much yeast do you put in?
1 gram. So you're using a ½ gram scoop for a total of 1 gram of yeast.
Thank you.
How much water did you measure out?
100 milliliters of water. So it's a 250 milliliter beaker. There's marks on the side, approximately 100 milliliters. Brennan.
So it's a full gram in each pipette?
A full gram into each petri dish, yeah.
That's like
Test tube.
After you wait 3 minutes, what do you do? Like, you measure?
We're not there yet. We're letting time elapse right now.
Should we add stopwatch to our materials?
That's a great question. If you're timing for 3 minutes, should you have a stopwatch on your materials?
Yes.
Absolutely. Stopwatch or timer needs to be on your materials.
And a stirring.
Just using the clock's not going to be good enough because you won't know right when it changes. Okay? So yeah, you need your stirry sticks on there. Okay? So we're going to pretend that it's been 3 minutes. Okay, we're playing the pretend game. It's been 3 minutes. So I'm going to take my test tubes out of the water, put them in my test tube rack. I'm going to dry off the test tube. You might want to use a paper towel to dry off your test tube, because and you want to be careful that you don't erase your mark. You're going to mark the final level. So I have my initial level and my final level. With water, there was no change. With mystery substance went up a little bit. So I'm marking my new level with my ruler. Then I'm going to measure the difference between my original level and my new level, so about 3 millimeters, or 0.3 centimeters. Okay? I'm going to record the difference between the initial mark and the final mark as the yeast activity. So it grew 3 millimeters over the test, over the 3 minutes. Dominic.
Are we just going to use the graduate cylinder?
You've got an initial mark, you've got a final mark, so I used a ruler to measure the difference between the initial mark and the final level. So once you've measured your first 4, you're going to take your test tubes. You are going to need a test tube cleaner or a bottle brush. You're going to just dump your yeast and substance into the sink. Nothing is toxic, nothing is caustic, so it's not anything that's going to hurt you.
What about bleach?
You are going to clean them out completely. Make sure there's no yeast particles left in there. And then again, you're going to use a paper towel. This time, you're going to be a little more aggressive with the paper towel because you need to get rid of the labels. You labeled the starting position and the final position, but a quick wipe with a damp paper towel will wipe off the Sharpie. Okay? Permanent is relative. Okay? Just like when you Sharpie on your hand, it goes away after a couple of days. If you wipe, you can wipe carefully, you'll be able to get it off of the test tubes. So you need to get your labels off all 4 of your test tubes so that you can label them with your next 4 substances and start over. You want to label kind of in shorthand, otherwise you have a lot to erase off of your test tubes. The more you write on there, the more you have to erase. Kyle.
What is the thing that you use to clean the...
A bottle brush or a test tube brush.
Okay.
And I have a little yeast left in here, so I'm going to rinse it out one more time. You want to make sure to get all the yeast out, all of the substance out, so that it doesn't interfere with your next test. Any other questions? Okay. And scene.